What's going to happen in the Chicago real estate market in 2024? Is it going to be a boom or is it going to be a bust? And so what we're going to do on this video is we're going to take a look back and review all of the 2023 statistics, year-over-year data that's proof in the pudding. This is all going to be taken from a resource called InfoSparks. And then once we summarize the data for 2023, we're going to take a look and we're going to preview what we think is going to happen and best predict what will happen in 2024 based on what we're seeing in the market right now at the very start of the year. So today's video, I'm excited to present this information to you. Again, this is not necessarily opinion. There will be some bias or opinion thrown into it, but most of the foundational items here are going to be based on statistics. All right, so let's get into the video. So welcome back to the channel. My name is Jordan Pyle, your go-to Chicago real estate agent, and I'm finally bringing you inside one of the conference rooms in my office. Normally I do these at home, but going out of town tomorrow, so got a busy day, got to get you the information that you're looking for. And so that all being said, my team and I have been servicing the city of Chicago for the last 10 years, and we'd be honored to assist you with your real estate goals in 2024. So if you have any questions whatsoever about making a move, you're moving to Chicago or moving around in Chicago, just feel free to text the number on the screen, and a team member or myself will get in touch within 24 hours. Also, if this is valuable to you, share it with a friend. Give us a like on the video, comment down below, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. All right, let's get into the data. All right, so to start out the video, as I mentioned, we're gonna take a review and look back on the 2023 data. All of this information is being taken from InfoSparks, which is basically an affiliate of MRED, which is the Midwest Real Estate Data Platform. And so all of this is going to be the actual stats, not just opinion. We're gonna be looking at four main metrics. The four main metrics are gonna be the sales price, we're gonna look at market time, we're gonna look at months of inventory, and we're going to look at closings. All right, so I'm gonna pop this up on the screen because I'm gonna be looking down at the stats here because my memory is not that good. But I'm gonna throw this up on the actual video so you can see exactly what I'm going to be reading to you and help decipher. And so first up, starting with sales price being the first section. So overall in Chicago, we are up on average 1.3%. And I should say, as a quick disclaimer, this is not the whole entire city of Chicago. This is essentially from like the South Loop north up until about Edgewater, Rogers Park area. And then if you're looking from Logan Square down to the West Loop, more on the west side, that is kind of the major markets that we focus on, that we operate in. And so the data is going to be pulled from those specific neighborhoods, which you're going to be seeing here in the actual data that we're presenting on the screen. And so sales price is the first thing, up on average 1.3%. Normal year-over-year appreciation in Chicago is about 2 to 3%. So we're a little bit lagging, but in general, sales prices were still up. A lot of this being driven by low inventory, which we'll get into on a later time. But as you look here, there's two distinct things that are happening. Really, we're talking about two different dynamics of the city market. We have the downtown market, which in this graph that you're going to be looking at is more of like the loop and the near north side. And then we have what we refer to as like the outskirts. So the outskirts are, South Loop, West Loop, Lincoln Park, Lakeview, Westtown, Logan Square, Bucktown, Wicker Park, and North Center, including Roscoe Village. And so you can see here that there's two main markets that are down significantly in sales price, and that is the downtown city, more high-rise style market, which is near north, and the loop. Near north coming in at almost 6% down year over year from 2022 through 2023, and the loop being the grand winner for the most amount of reduction in sales price at 10.8%. And so this has been the market that's been struggling ever since the pandemic. We're starting to see it come back a little bit, but you can see here that it's still lagging. And this is where you can really find some good deals because there's a lot more inventory in these two markets. So working our way then to some of the other data, I'm not gonna read every single one, but most of these are, above 2%, right? So you have Bucktown, Wicker Park at 2.5, Logan Square at 3.8. You have the grand winner in the amount of increase in sales price, which is Lincoln Park, which is 5.2%. So overall, these outskirts markets are pretty much on trend or slightly performing just a little bit better than what we typically see year over year, which is about that 2 to 3% increase in sales price. So that rounds out sales price, as I mentioned. You can kind of look at each of these markets, but I just highlighted a few of the main points here. All right, so moving on, the next section we're gonna address is market time. Market time on average for these neighborhoods was 50.5 days, so just about 50 days on market, which obviously is a little over a month and a half. And I would say that is still a pretty extreme seller's market. we're gonna look at the months of inventory, which is a little bit more of an indicator of a buyer's or seller's market. But market time, the way to think about this is if you're a seller, you're listing your property on the market, the average amount of time it takes for that property to be listed and go under contract with a new buyer. And so near north in the loop, you can see these general themes are gonna continue. Near north has 108 days of market time. That's massive. Like, we haven't seen that amount of market time in a long time. The loop at 93 days, West Loop at 73 days, and then some of these on the other end of the spectrum, Lincoln Park, for example, 16 days on the market, which is incredibly fast for a property to sell. And then you have North Center, including Roscoe Village, which is the winner in this category, being a small 15 days on market. So a property gets listed on average, if a property is listed in this market, it's going under contract within 2 weeks. So this is pretty significant, and this data follows the sales price a little bit in terms of the markets that have seen increases in sales price. There's less inventory, meaning properties are going under contract faster. And then the markets where there's more inventory, they're sitting longer and then ultimately ending up with less money, which is reducing the sales price. All right, so that's sales price and market time. Next thing we're gonna discuss here is months of inventory. And so months of inventory is one of my favorite metrics to look at, which is, the way I like to describe this is if you were to just put a certain type of property out there, let's just say it's, Lincoln Park, 3-bedroom, 3 bathrooms, and you were to cut off any new supply of properties hitting the market that fit that criteria, how long would it take for all of that inventory that's currently on the market to sell through? And so, on average in Chicago, it is 2.82%, so 3 months of inventory almost. We consider a buyer's market where there's more supply than there is demand to be anything between 4 and 7 months of inventory. So in general, Chicago is very much still a seller's market, even though you can see here some of these other markets are leaning towards more of a buyer's market. And so it depends, who you're talking to, what they're buying. Are they buying luxury? Are they not luxury? Are they in a certain neighborhood or a different one? All of these things really have to be tailored to your specific situation, which is why we like to give a little bit more of this breakdown like this. And so on average, as I mentioned, almost 3 months. Near north, again, following the trends, 5.6 months of inventory. So you have properties sitting on the market for almost half a year in the near north. And near north, for kind of clarity, is pretty much anything above the river moving north. So you have the neighborhoods such as River North, Streeterville, Gold Coast, the southern parts of Old Town. That is kind of what comprises and makes up near north. And then the loop is similar, not quite as much inventory or months of inventory, but you have the loop at 4.5 months. So both of those would be considered a buyer's market versus a seller's market. So if you're looking for deals, those are the markets that you want to be buying in. South Loop coming in at 3.7 market, so a pretty balanced market. West Loop at 2.5, and then you start getting into some of the extreme sellers markets like Lincoln Park, which only has 2 months of inventory, North Center at 1.6, Bucktown and Wicker Park at 1.8 months, Logan Square at 1.5, which is actually the winner in this category. So essentially, that is an extreme seller's market. So properties that are good condition in a good location and they're priced to sell and aggressively is another way I kind of describe that. Those properties are selling very quickly, and a lot of those are going up and over asking price. So those are the competitive markets. All right, continue to move on for the last section here, which is closings. And on average, this is all red. Everything is down for closings. As you probably heard, we had this rate lock effect last year where interest rates went from 3%, even under that, to up towards 8% at their peak. Basically, month over month, they were increasing aggressively. And so this created a lock effect where sellers didn't want to list their homes for sale because they didn't want to be on the double-edged sword of having to sell in the market, but then also buying and giving up their low interest rate and then buying again at a higher interest rate. And so we saw closings down significantly citywide. On average, 27% down year over year from 2022 to 2023. Which is crazy. So a third of a difference basically. Near north, you had 14.6%. The loop, you had 13.2%. So this is where this changes a little bit, right? So you actually see more closings, or I should say a lesser percentage of a reduction in closings in those two neighborhoods, or in those two areas that we talked about having more inventory. Ultimately, less increase in sales price year over year, And so the reason is because if you have more inventory, well, there's naturally going to be more sales, right? And so these other markets like South Loop or West Loop, Lincoln Park coming in at 31.8% down versus the average at 27, or Near North, which was at 14.6. You also have Logan Square at 32.7, which is the winner in this category. Bucktown Wicker Park 31.9. So there's 33, a third percent less inventory in some of these major markets here in Chicago. So that rounds out basically the 4 sections and data that I like to look at. And I really love the data because, like I said, it gives you a preview of what occurred. But then by analyzing the data, you can start to see trends on what may be coming, right? What's coming down the pipeline? How can we use the data to make our most educated and financially responsible decisions based on where we see the market going? All right, so now that we talked about the review, let's move on and finish this video out with the preview, which is what we expect to see in 2024, which is probably the reason you're watching this video. So I should have mentioned, jump to this part of the video, but I think seeing the data move over time and then get us to the present day is important to kind of track this whole thing. But what we're seeing is basically market time is decreasing and it's going down fast, right? So properties are hitting the market again. They're selling within hours, especially in these outskirt markets. It's feeding frenzies. Open houses have 20, 30, 40 people. There's 7 or 8 offers on properties, and most of them are going open over ask. A slight difference this year, though, is I noticed that buyers are a little bit more timid. So they're still willing to pay more than ask, but unlike years in like 2021 and 2022, they're a little bit more gun shy to really throw the house at the seller, right? They really want to make sure that they're not going to be drastically overpaying, even though they're still willing to overpay in order to secure the house that they love. Because if you have a beautiful property, as I mentioned before, that's got great conditions and an awesome location and it's priced to sell, well, there's likely going to be a bunch of other people that like that house if you like that house, right? And so that's the first thing we're seeing. You're gonna have to be ready this year, right? So if you're a buyer in this market, especially in these outskirts neighborhoods, you need to have your pre-approval squared away. You need to be in sync with your realtor, your attorney, with your lender, making sure that when that property comes up, because there is low inventory in these markets, you're ready to move on that, get in to see that property as soon as possible, and be willing to make offers, knowing that worst case scenario, you can get out of those deals if you need to, based on the different contingencies in the contract. But there's no time to drag your feet, to bring mother and father by for a second showing or a third showing. If you're doing these things, you're not gonna get the listing, and that's just the reality of the market we're in. So being with an agent and a team that can help facilitate this, that can position your offer and make it as competitive as possible. There's a lot of different tricks and tips that we can use to make you stand out in the market in the eyes of a seller. Next thing, more showings. So we had the Arctic blast, a couple weeks ago where we saw negative temperatures, negative 20, negative 30 with wind chill. That put a little bit of a pause in the market, but now that we're moving into February, we're getting ready to go past the Super Bowl, which is what we typically refer to as the Wednesday or Thursday after the Super Bowl is kind of like the unofficial start to the spring market. So we're starting to see showings on properties go up significantly. Along with that, if we have more properties in the market, we have more buyers in the market, we're seeing showings go up, well, we're also seeing contracts go up. So amount of deals that are going contingent. If you're watching properties, you have little tickers out there for reminders on different properties that you like online, well, you're probably noticing pretty rapidly that those are going from active or new listings to contingent, or it may be listed as CTG or contingent online, and that means that that property is now under contract. So a quick preview on rates. I know mortgage rates are a hot topic. So we just had the Federal Reserve meeting last week where they kept the federal funds rate stable, and they didn't move it up or move it down. In general, I'm not going to get too much into rates on this video today, but in general, we expect rates to hover between 6 and 7% for a 30-year fixed conventional in 2024. So we saw them dip down to about 6.5 at one point in the last 45 days or so, and now they're sitting like closer to about 7%. So we think that they're going to be somewhere between 6 and 7%, probably 6.5 to 7 for most of the year. We might start to see that trickling down a little bit in 2025. However, there's an interesting dynamic as it relates to interest rates, which is if you're waiting for rates to come down, when rates come down, it unlocks a whole new field of buyers that are now able to qualify to purchase a home. And so even though you may be getting a better rate when you're actually buying a property, well, if you're having to overpay for that exact same property because of the fact that there's more demand due to lower interest rates, well, you can see it's kind of this yin and yang effect. So what we always like to say is, it's very tough to time the market. It's more important to have time in the market. All right, so talking about inventory in general, inventory constraints are going to continue to be basically the main bottleneck, not only in Chicago, but throughout the nation. We do expect more inventory to come off the fence this year because rates are slightly lower. They're no longer increasing month over month. They're starting to come down, or they're starting to stabilize. And we think that this is going to unlock some of that inventory that's just been waiting, that was in that lock effect, as we talked about earlier in the video. We all have different reasons why people buy homes, whether they're getting married, they're having babies, they're upsizing, they're downsizing as empty nesters. Life has to go on, so people are starting to make real estate decisions again. And we expect basically new inventory to hit the market week after week, between this week being basically the week after the Super Bowl, all the way through about June. We expect that to be the core of the 2024 real estate market. So if you're a seller thinking about selling, I would say get your property on the market as soon as possible. If you're a buyer, you may be able to find some better deals closer to the election. It's not guaranteed, but in general, the maximum amount of inventory and new inventory that's going to be hitting the market is going to start being released week after week from this point forward and through about June or the start of June. I would say in general, confidence is just starting to grow both for sellers and for buyers. And so last year, people were just very gun shy. People were a little bit timid, not knowing what was going to happen in the market. It was just kind of a crazy year in 2023. And so we expect more optimism, more positivity, more people making buying and selling decisions in 2024. And that's just going to be a general trend that I'm predicting for 2024. Also, we're expecting the downtown markets to start to improve. We're already starting to see some of these properties that have been sitting for that, 5, almost 6 months. Those are starting to go under contract. People are starting to go back to the city. You had this flight to the suburbs. You had this flight out of Chicago during the pandemic. And I think Chicago is naturally rebounding, right? Everything's in cycles here. We're starting to see the downtown market come back a little bit. So if I was a betting man, we talked about those different metrics as related to like the near north market and the loop. Well, I think all of those numbers are going to be improved if we're looking at the data 1 year from today. And so if you're thinking about buying in that downtown market, you probably have a short window of time before that starts to get a little bit more competitive, and it's still going to be lagging the outskirts. It's not going to perform as well. There's going to be more inventory, longer days on market, not as much of an increase in sales price. But in general, I think we're going to start seeing some confidence come back in the downtown, more dense markets here in Chicago. To finalize this video, the luxury market, I think we're going to start to see a comeback in the luxury market in 2024. I think that you're starting to see some big sales happening already at the start of 2024. I think we just had a 9 or 8.5, or it was somewhere between $8 and $10 million sale that occurred in the downtown market. And I think we're going to start seeing more of these luxury properties that have struggled to sell in the past start to go under contract. I think right now there's a lot of people that are a little bit further along in life, or they're just have more cash saved, more reserves. They're starting to deploy money in real estate as a good hold of value. And so I think that the luxury market is going to perform better in 2024 than it did in 2023. In Chicago, in terms of luxury, like we consider luxury pretty much anything over like $1 million or $1.5 million. Some other markets, that's like the average sales price. Here in Chicago, if you have a $4 million house, well, that's a pretty luxury, pretty expensive house. And so when I refer to luxury, I'm pretty much referring to anything over like $1.5 million. All right, so that does it. Closing out the computer here. I hope this has been helpful to you. Again, this is the data. This is not me necessarily giving opinions. I had a little bit of supporting opinions based on the data, but this is what the proof is saying in the pudding. And so the review, I hope, was helpful to look back at 2023. And if you have any questions about what this data and what the market may be doing in 2024 and how this relates specifically to your specific situation, feel free to just text the number on the screen, and a team member or myself will get in touch within 24 hours. Also, there's a lot of great resources down below, like our newsletter that we send out bi-weekly. We also have some neighborhood guides. And if you're looking for other videos like this one, well, just feel free to click on any of the videos here on the screen. So hope this has been helpful. Again, thank you so much. Please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.
Come on, hit me with something.